Thanks for making us a part of your morning. This is Good Morning PD on Live 95.
Welcome back to Good Morning PD Live 95 on a Tuesday morning. Thanks to our good friends at QAT. You can find out more by visiting their website, teamqat.com. I read an article last night where the lobbyists are souring on Paul Ryan. It's hard for a lame duck speaker to get people to do what he needs them to do. Normally you threat with lobbying and political action committee money and the likes. Well, the lobbyists are kind of cooling off on Paul Ryan once again because he's lame duck, and that kind of affects the entire way the House of Representatives works. Now, I've given Ryan a lot of props. I've said I think he's serious. I think he's intelligent. I think he's competent. I think he's establishment. I think he's globalization. I think he's a little bit interventionism, probably not to the extent some of the Bush policies were.
Or Lindsey Graham.
But I think he's a very serious politician. I really believe that. I think Paul Ryan is one of the more serious politicians in Washington. I just disagree on a couple of fronts. Doesn't mean I disrespect what he does. I just fundamentally disagree. He announced he will retire at the end of this term in January. I think this middle of January is officially. That means he's given up his prominent position and his salary of $223,500. That's right. Public servants make $223,000 a year. I went back and read. There's an article in CNBC. You got to do a little digging to get there. But there's something called the Federal Employees Retirement System, where the members of Congress have an accelerated formula. There's a formula for years of service, the salary you made, the percentage of retirement you get. Congress has a pretty sweet deal in regards to that. Paul Ryan will receive $84,930 a year for the rest of his life. That's assuming he sticks with, Speaker of the House job until January when he officially rides off in the sunset. 23% of American workers today have a pension. 23% of American workers have a pension. How many of you on your way to work right now consider yourselves to be a public servant? If anything in Washington should offend all of us, it should be their willingness to consider themselves public servants. I just told you, Ryan's making about $223 a year. And he probably should. I mean, he's got a real important job. It's a hard job. It has a lot of heartache and headache, but don't call yourself a public servant. Don't say you're doing this for the good of the country. It's a real good paying job. We know that many employers have shifted away from pensions in favor of 401ks and all these other sorts of things. But I'm having a real hard time understanding and digesting and coming to terms with how somebody can put down on an application for a loan. What do? I'm a public servant. What do you make? I make $223,000 a year. How you going to pay me if you quit in January? Well, I get about $85,000 a year in retirement. When we wonder, when the political class in America wonders why we have become so incredibly frustrated and have so much disdain for what they do in Washington, it's the fact that you think we're that stupid. You think that we believe that you are a public servant, that the reason you fly to Washington every week is because you love Wisconsin and you love the country and you want to do right by the country. The majority of the reason you go is it's hard to find a job to make $223 a year. I've got this buddy, the same guy I was told me earlier, I think you're on to something with his marriage. He's always, those guys can make more money in the public sector. In the private sector. Ryan could go get him a job as a lawyer. How much has Congress changed his life? And public service shouldn't change your life that much. We know the stories of Harry Reid, and this is certainly not a partisan issue. We know the stories of Democrats and Republicans who have gone to Washington, and it's the best job they've ever had. And they make $185,000 a year. They call themselves public servant. The average median income in America is about $52,000, $53,000 a year. So you're making nearly 4 times what the average American is, and you call yourself a public servant. If a public service was truly public service, it would make the median income in America today. I mean, if you're doing this because you love the country, you're altruistic, you want to make the world a better place, you would say, okay, I'll do this. What are the average salary in America? Maybe we should revisit this. Maybe we should consider paying these people, what the average American worker makes. That there are people that make $1 million a year, that make $20,000 a year. I've never understood how the people in Washington don't believe that one day, or didn't believe that one day we would catch on. And one day we would see clearly what it is they're doing. It's a career. It's not public service. Being a member of Congress is a real lucrative and good job. And how many of these people go there, that being the best job they've ever had in their lives? I don't know how many. There's some on the outlier. There's some real successful business guys who have got into politics. There's some wealthy family members who have gotten into politics. But there's a large share of people that go to Congress every year, and that's the most money they've ever made. They're making $1.85. They've never made that much money in their lives. They stay 20 years, and they some way, somehow amass a wealth and a fortune and an estate of 6, 8, 10, 12, 15 million. How do you do that? I mean, how do you do that and call yourself a public servant? Harry Reid, I think, left Washington with an estate worth 10, 11, 12 million dollars. A net worth, not an estate. He hadn't passed away yet. Got a bad eye, but I don't think he's passed away yet.
No.
But I mean, he goes there. It's the best job he ever had. He goes there. He makes $1.85 a year. And 20 years later, or 26, however long he stayed there, too long. They all stay there too long, or the majority stay there too long. But he comes home and you find out the guy's in some way, shape, or form as a public servant, amassed a fortune of $10 to $12 million. How does that work? Why do we allow that to continue? And it perpetuates itself. It's kind of it's like a snowball. And somebody will take Paul Ryan's place, and somebody will do the same thing Paul Ryan does. But Paul Ryan, at the expense of the American taxpayer, will get $85,000 a year until he takes his last breath. Is that public service? I mean, when you sign up to be a public servant, you believe at the age of 51 that the taxpayer should pay you $85,000 for the rest of your life? And you call yourselves a public servant? I mean, when all these people die, you've heard the wedding, you've heard the eulogies. He was an unwavering contributor to society. He was what a public servant was intended to be. No, he wasn't. He was a congressman making a lot of money who was always trying to figure out a way to make more money when he left. What do you think Paul Ryan will do when he leaves? I have no idea. I would imagine he'll go to work at some lobbying firm. That's just a guess. I'll be real surprised if in March or April of next year, Paul Ryan is not a member of some big, lobbying firm in our nation's capital. And we allow these people to continue to tell us that they're public servants. They're very well-paid members of Congress, extremely well-paid members of Congress who, on average, make about 4 times as much as the average American worker. And I don't hear anybody in a coal mine or anybody on a construction site or anybody in a hospital or anybody on a radio station saying, I'm doing this for the public good. No, you're not. You're doing it for the money. You're doing it for the power. You're doing it for the fame. You're doing it for the influence. Just admit it. And I think we could accept that a little more easily. Take a break. Back in a minute. Thanks to QAT. Good Morning PD Live 95.